Well, thank you all very much. It's an honor to be here. I really appreciate the opportunity to speak to everyone today, and I feel very grateful to be the final speaker, although I also have to say that I feel like it's quite a burden as well. You've all been here for, I don't know how many days now, 3, 4 for some of you, and maybe you're tired of listening to people speak, so I hope you'll give me the benefit of a couple more minutes of your time. I'd like to thank the organizers. I think what you're doing is tremendous, and the fact that you've been doing it for so long is quite impressive. Also, given the fact that I'm on camera right now, I would like to thank my own organization, GAIN. Thanks very much for sending me to Bermuda. That's pretty spectacular. And then I'd also just like to go through a couple of quick disclaimers, as others have done. I haven't actually conducted any research yet, so there are no conflicts of interest here. But it is worth saying that I'm not a nutritionist. I'm actually a lawyer by training, and so I hope you won't hold that against me. And the other thing to say is that I'm an idealist, which means that I'm of the belief that it's actually possible to have some major game-changing impact in development, and in particular in nutrition, which is the sector that I work in. And I'm a firm believer that the private sector is an integral part of that. So with all of that being said, I'm here to talk about the role of business in contributing to setting new research agendas. And I recognize that I'm actually preaching not just to the choir, but actually to the preachers themselves. You've been pioneers in this space for 30 years, so I'm only hoping to add to what you're already doing and perhaps to galvanize some additional commitment here. So the purpose of my talk today is to spend a little bit of time discussing how we can promote more investment into public research, how we can promote the uptake of that research into new programs, policies, and products, and how we can systematically engage business in partnerships which contribute to the public good, but also meet business bottom line. And that's the piece that I'm really going to try to stress today, is the business bottom line. Again, I'm doing this speech in the context of nutrition, and it's just useful to give you a very quick sense of where we are in that field, although many of you have already demonstrated your expertise. Nutrition is a relatively new science. It's tremendously complex. I've come to appreciate that very quickly, that everything I assumed was already sorted out has only just begun to be sorted out. Consequently, because we don't know very much, it's a real challenge to implement programming at scale. Addressing undernutrition in developing countries has historically been the mandate of the public sector, but increasingly the public sector is running out of resources, and that's becoming quite clear. And without the funding and the capacity, governments and nonprofit organizations who are implementing programs will really need some additional support to meet the growing demands of a complex health, and that should also say food, context. I firmly believe that the private sector can be an engine to meeting these evolving demands. However, currently there is very little investment that is going into nutrition in the developing world from business. And I'll discuss that quite a bit more at length later on in the presentation. But fundamentally, I think it's about a lack of incentives. Because right now in developing countries, there's very little demand for good nutrition because there's very little awareness about it. The policy environment is very fragmented. There's quite a bit of lack of consensus around what is needed and who can provide it. Combined with the fact that you have many people who are living on only $1 to $2 per day means that there's a very low profit margin in all of this. So what that all leads to is high risk, relatively low reward. Now, what is the consequence of this lack of evidence in nutrition? Well, there's just not enough good products available, either through public distribution channels or, I would also argue, more importantly, even through the market. And we really need to stimulate more innovation in terms of what products are available for different population groups, as well as the delivery channels that we use to reach these people and the techniques that we use to stimulate demand. And in order to try to build these partnerships, we will need to engage business much more systematically. It can't just be at the very end of a long continuum of public consultations that business is now invited to develop a product that we all need. It has to be integral to the planning process. And in order to do this and to be able to pool resources in this area, I believe that a very good approach to doing this work is to try to target pre-competitive opportunities. Places where business can pool resources even with their most fiercest of rivals in support of furthering not only the public good, but actually building an evidence base upon which commercial R&D can be driven. There's political will to make this happen, and I think that's a very important point to stress, because these types of partnerships are extremely difficult to make happen, and we see all sorts of ad hoc engagement that has not really led to any sort of dramatic change in terms of the global nutritional status. But the reality is that more than 2 billion people around the world suffer from malnutrition, either under or overnutrition. Undernutrition itself is responsible for 45% of the 3.1 million child deaths per year. It's also responsible for up to 11% of total GDP loss in Africa and Asia. It's pretty staggering, actually. So to address this, now almost 4 years ago, the United Nations launched the Scaling Up Nutrition movement that some of you may be familiar with. And this is the principal political movement for nutrition, and fundamentally what it says is that we need more investment into nutrition. What's going in right now is not even close to enough to meet this massive burden, and so we need to find ways of systematically making that happen. And policymakers are very quickly warming to the idea that business can be an important contributor. However, very few people seem to have an idea of how that actually can be done. Our attempt at a solution, or at least one of many, is this new platform that we've recently launched that we call the Business Platform for Nutrition Research. Now, this was announced at the G8. They had a major summit called the Nutrition for Growth in June of 2013. And was formally launched at the UN General Assembly in September of this year. But this has been a part of a consultation process that's been happening for more than a year now, as we try to figure out how to engage business early in the process of what is ultimately product development for developing markets. This is important for the private sector, because sharing the cost of R&D is going to make it easier to bear some of that early stage risk, understand where there's real opportunity and where there's consensus, and then on the back of that, promote commercial R&D. For the public sector, this is an opportunity to leverage their investments and ensure that research results don't merely sit on the shelf, but that they're actually applied in products and, as well, integrated into new policies and new programs. The target market for this platform is low and middle income populations in developing countries. However, we do see quite a bit of relevance for high-income populations in those countries, as well as for developed markets, because we do believe that there are certain universal findings that will be helpful in driving forward on improved nutrition. And we also believe that this research is useful in providing additional products to stimulate institutional markets. So how can we be providing good access to nutrition for the poorest of the poor, or for people suffering in emergencies? The platform itself is only an umbrella. The purpose is to connect business, donors, and academia together to jointly define and invest in research, which will be conducted by independent research institutions. Funding can flow either competitively through calls for proposals or through strategic partnerships with select research partners. These academic institutions will publish all research results, and the platform will aggregate those results, helping to build cross-sector learning and promote the uptake of research in new policies, programs, and R&D. The platform may also develop capacity to support initiatives such as open data, knowledge, and technology exchange. Fundamentally, what we're trying to do here is reorient the discussion around how research agendas are set. And I think you've all, for many years now, been engaging in public-private partnerships for research. But what I would posit is that most of that research is being driven from public sector, from academia, and into potential willing business partners. What we'd actually like to do is turn that on its head and have the private sector be the ones suggesting new research opportunities that are both relevant for public good, but also that have some clear link to downstream product development. And that's going to be a delicate dance to do, because we know ultimately that it is academia which is going to have to validate this. It's going to have to be in contribution of a public agenda and not in duplication, and not focusing resources where they're not needed. But again, by trying to forcibly create that link between the uptake and the research, we think that there may be an opportunity to do something interesting. These are the supporting companies who we're working with so far. Several of you are already in the room today. I'd like to stress that this is what we hope is just a start. We have 10 companies. I'm, again, idealistic. My hope is that we can have 50 or 100 or more potentially. And again, you will see largely food companies here. However, we do have some representatives from pharmaceuticals, some food ingredients as well. And I believe that there's an opportunity through these different research streams that I'll talk about next to be able to engage with a much wider group. Just very briefly again, how does business add value to this agenda setting process? Well, one, the additional investment in terms of financial resources is extremely important. Investment into all sorts of public research in nutrition, I would argue, is dramatically low, and we need more money. We also need to bring in business skills and expertise in certain research streams where the public sector may not be able to have all of the information and skills necessary to drive forward an integrated agenda. And then finally, and again, helping to focus the research agenda with the aim of promoting uptake. And why should business care? Well, this is an opportunity to leverage funds, not only from the public sector, but also from others in the private sector who have similar basic research needs, to build evidence through a transparent and credible platform, which I've heard from many of the companies who have joined is amongst the most important reasons for this work, is being able to give a credible voice so that research is not discredited by being too heavily influenced by business, to engage in a more systematic approach to integrating business perspectives into research, and to build pathways to integrating research outcomes into policies and programs. I won't spend too much time on this, but just to say, even though it is called the business platform for nutrition research, this is wholly a multi-stakeholder platform. It was only intended to give the clear direction that business is at front and center here, that it's about uptake, but we do need academia, we need donors, national governments. I've thrown GAIN in there as well. Our role is as a coordinator of the Secretariat of this platform. Now, the really hard part is how to define a research agenda which is adding to the existing research and in support of the public good, relevant from a commercial standpoint, and pre-competitive. And pre-competitive might be the most important buzzword and the hardest part of it. The way that we're doing this is that we have identified different research streams, and we've modeled this on a similar platform, which is called the Top Institute for Food and Nutrition, which is based in the Netherlands. And the way it works is that partners to the platform can choose to participate in any research stream that they would like. They only commit funding into the stream that they care about. However, at least the premise right now is that once they've joined that stream, all of the research questions pursued under it will be supported by those founding and sponsoring companies. I won't bother walking through each of these streams, but just to say that in each of them, we do have interested companies who have offered to come forward as leads, and they've developed research briefs which are in the process of further development, revision, and then they will be validated in the academic community. Just to give you a sense of the types of commercial applications that we think can come out from some of these different research streams, we believe that, for example, a better understanding of the links between undernutrition, overweight and obesity, chronic disease, infectious disease, really opens up the portfolio of products which we understand to be relevant for addressing nutrition. Similarly, understanding product formulation and composition can have a direct impact on influencing global guidelines. And for example, right now in maternal nutrition or adolescent nutrition, what we know is critically important, there's very little consensus about exactly what the nutritional requirements are, what format they should come in, and so that really limits business investment in that space. This is the structure that we are proposing. The most important piece that I would draw your attention to is that top bar, this advisory board on research integrity and transparency. I'll speak again about that in just a moment. The functions of the Secretariat are to help refine the scope of these research briefs, to engage with the broader development and research communities, broker partnerships, try to mobilize additional resources into these areas, and disseminate the learnings that come out of these research platforms. This advisory board, which we're just beginning to form now, will be made up of well-respected academicians and policymakers. The intent is to find that sweet spot between where this new research is truly adding value from an academic perspective, but also where it actually has some commercial relevance for business. And so we're looking to some of these experts to help guide these recommendations to ensure that the research which is conducted is done transparently, that it is all shared regardless of research outcomes, and that it is fully aligned with and supporting broader research agendas. Potential products and interventions that a platform like this might unlock. Well, for example, we would hope to see more affordable, portable diagnostic tools to be used in assessing the quality and safety of products. We would like to see companies competing on what products taste the best and are most affordable, but not the ones that are least likely to kill you. We'd like to see more solutions to reduce costs and promote local sourcing for therapeutic foods, like ready-to-use supplementary foods or the plumpy nuts, if any of you are familiar with that. We'd also like to promote better links between health and hygiene products, and as I mentioned before, more solutions to improve maternal nutrition. Now, the real reason I was asked here, I think, in addition to having a platform to talk about what I'm doing, is to try to engage with ILSI. I've been tremendously impressed by the work that I've heard over the last several days. It's very clear that there's a lot of effort that's already gone into the space in nutrition. Very happy to hear that nutrition is one of the thematic areas that you're exploring. Have no interest whatsoever in discrediting the great work that I've just heard about in terms of healthy aging, which I think is very important. I would like to make a strong push that you also give some serious thought to the idea of early stage nutrition for early childhood development. We know that nutrition underpins so much of human health and development in terms of physical growth, in terms of cognitive growth. It has a major impact. I think it's somewhere in the range of 11% of the total disease burden is directly related to nutrition. So it's something that we cannot avoid. And because there is so little business investment in it right now, and ILSI is so well placed at the intersection of business and academia, I think that you can play a powerful role in advocating for companies to engage more in nutrition. I also believe very strongly, as was mentioned previously, because of your expertise in terms of working across thematic areas, in terms of your credibility and your partnership experience, your ability to help define implementing partners and to integrate the results of research into formal policy making and standard setting processes, that ILSI is a tremendous partner in this effort. I also believe that all of the different ILSI members themselves unilaterally would make tremendous partners, and I'd be very happy to work with any and all of you who are interested. I have a slide that says questions. I don't know if I'm given an opportunity or not at this time, but thank you very much.